In this video, I'm going to be doing a teardown of a Sony Vaio PCG-F430. I'll be replacing the spinning hard drive with a compact flash-based SSD solution, remove the old CMOS battery, take a look under the heatsink at the CPU module, and finally take a tour of the factory Windows 98 installation and also installing a Japanese F70 Instore demo disk. But first, some history and specs. Released in 1999 and revamped in 2000. For processors, the initial 99 miles came with a Pentium 2 ranging from 300 to 366 MHz. The 2000 miles bumping that up to a Pentium 3 from 500 to 850 MHz. We had a few screen size options from a 13 or 14 inch 1024 by 768 to a 15 inch 1400 by 1050. Video ranged from a Neomagic Magic Media to an ATI Rage M1. You get two memory slots with the 99 miles starting at 32 megabytes, upgradable to 192. And the later miles base 128 megabytes, upgradable to 256 megabytes. Storage is a standard 44-pin, 2.5-inch IDE hard drive. So the operating systems range from Windows 98, ME, and 2000. F-series laptops were about 2 inches thick and weighed in at 7.3 pounds. So now let's take a look at the laptop. Along the front, we just have our screen latch. On the side, we have our iLink Firewire port, infrared port, video out, headphone, microphone, 2 PC card slots, and our first battery. Along the back, we have our dial-up modem, mouse, keyboard, PS2 port, 2 USB ports, CPU exhaust, DC power jack, and under this cover, we have our serial port, parallel port, and a VGA out. Now on the bottom, we have some flip-up feet. We have the dock connector here, our BIOS and memory under these covers. I'll show those later. We can remove our floppy drive. We can add a second battery here. I'll show that in a moment. So now opening the lid, we have a small trackpad, mouse buttons, microphone, decent keyboard, speakers, some function keys, power button. Our indicator lights, you can see we have a different one for each battery. There are quite a few models in the F series. Here I'm showing the F430. I'll do my demo on an F560. Let's do a comparison to an F350. So some minor differences here. You can see that the Firewire port had moved. It's also twice the speed, 200 to 400. No analog video out. The 350 has this power button on the side, and there's 2 screws holding the top plate on instead of 1. On the back, you can see the F350 on the bottom has more hinge screws. It's a smaller exhaust port for the CPU fan, and only a single USB port. Everything else is the same. Pretty much the same under the lid too, just that missing power button that moved to the side. So now I have the second battery installed. You can see this is where the floppy drive would normally be, just a flat plate. So when we eject it, first the weight saver module comes out. Just make sure our battery fits snug and covers up the opening. It also has a little arm that flips down so you can install this without a battery. Save some weight. And here's our second battery. So this is the F350. You'll notice that rather than the large memory door and the small BIOS cover, we just have the single cover here. And since our teardown is going to be on the F560, let's take a quick look. And under the cover, we still have our removable BIOS chip. We also have a nice coin cell lithium CMOS battery. The F560 has an internal nickel metal hydride. Now let's take a quick look at the dock. We have separate mouse and keyboard PS2 ports, Ethernet port, USB port, VGA out, printer, serial. Our eject latches. I'm trying out the dock. You can see the dock covers most of the ports. Our DC jack, USB ports, cover with our I/O, mouse. One last thing, I have this Japanese Instore demo for an F70. I'll show this more at the end. So let's get started with the teardown, first by removing the floppy drive and then the battery. Next, let's take a look at the removable BIOS chip under this little cover. Under the other cover, we have our RAM. Next, removing the 3 screws along the bottom edge and one in the middle. These are holding the top cover on. If you're just replacing the hard drive, you don't need to take these off, but you will if you want to remove the CMOS battery, which is strongly recommended. Next, we have a screw on the side holding the top trim on with the speakers and the buttons. Now we slide the panel to the side and lift off, being careful because there is a ribbon cable holding this on. I'm going to disconnect this ribbon cable, but there is enough slack that you could just set this aside. One of the risks of unplugging it is a little plastic strengthener, may come unglued and fall off. You need to build it back up with some Kapton tape or something so that it fits snugly back into the connector. Disconnecting the keyboard, just lift up on both clips straight up, releases tension on the cable. And then our keyboard is just held in by a single screw. You can see our hard drive here, but first let's remove this top cover so we can get to the battery. There's 2 screws, one on the left, one on the right. Notice the different sizes. And next we slide the top cover and flip it up, being careful because it's connected to the trackpad. We can just leave it connected. We have our CMOS battery tucked in a little channel in the front of the laptop. The wire runs under some glued down foam. We just kind of pry it up and then disconnect the battery. Now we can reinstall our top cover, sliding it back in, and reinstalling the two different size screws. Now we can move the hard drive caddy. It's being held on by a couple of screws. The connector is also screwed down. And notice this isn't the case in the earlier models. You can see this screw here is also holding in our CD/DVD drive. We lift the connector off the motherboard, and then we can pry out the entire caddy. So after unscrewing the drive, we can drop it out of the caddy and disconnect that proprietary ID connector. So I'm replacing the drive with a 44-pin compact flash adapter and a 4GB industrial compact flash card, reattaching our ID connector, and then to keep everything a little cleaner, using a 3D printed compact flash to 2.5-inch ID adapter. A little tape to hold it in place, a little protection, and installed back into the caddy. So now I just reinstall the drive, its connector, and its screws. Now I'm inserting some footage here from another F-series laptop that I was working on that needed to replace the CPU module. It seemed like the best place to put it. You can see we have 3 screws holding the main block down, and they're numbered with the recommended order to loosen and tighten them for the proper spring tension. We also need to remove this little clip and its 2 small screws. disconnect our CPU fan. Getting the top cover out of the way. Giving myself a little more maneuvering room by removing the metal tray underneath the hard drive caddy. Then we can just tilt up and wiggle out our CPU cooler. Our CPU comes on this daughter board right here. Let's take a closer look at the board. Now let's just jump back to our previous reassembly. So next we reinstall the keyboard, its ribbon cable, getting into the slot, and pushing down on the connector. Then slots into the bottom, and it's held in with a single screw. I need to reconnect my top cover here. We slide it over and screw it back in. Reinstalling our battery, our floppy drive, then the 4 screws, and the reassembly is complete. So next, let's do our first power on and take a look at the BIOS. And now, let's take a tour of the factory Windows 98 installation. Checking out the Vaio folder, we have some Adobe applications, DVGate motion and still, mini DVD camcorder capture software, Image Station, Sony's online photo sharing site, Media Bar, our CD player software, Movie Shaker video editor, you'll see more of this in a Sony demo video, Smart Capture, another video capture program, label publisher, Write, free word processor, now into the Start menu, Programs. We have Battery Scope, our battery monitor, runs down in the system tray. You can see the dual battery setup. There's no second battery installed here. We can get details on our battery. You can see the date, the number of cycles, the capacity, both the original and how much life is left, our wear level. Notebook Setup gives us more details on our laptop. It also lets us configure a bunch of the options that are normally accessible in the BIOS. Next, we have a built-in tour of this laptop showing the features, specs, upgrades, apps. Also has a tour of the Movie Shaker app. Let's just watch this. Now I came across this Instore demo floppy on a Japanese auction site. I had no idea what it did. It's made for an earlier F70 laptop. What it does is it remaps the web and email action buttons with some offline demos. So this is in Japanese, so I installed an Internet Explorer language pack to get this to display properly. So here we have a snapshot of the Vaio web page. The drop downs do work. We have our offline images, but none of the links work. Now the email option is even more simple. Just loads a very basic web page, a simple 2-frame animated GIF, looping between a fake splash screen, and then an inbox. Now I've uploaded the installer floppy disk to archive.org if anyone wants to play around with it. And finally, let's take a look at the computer's properties. But that's it. Thanks for watching.